So we kind of know what ideation is, but how do we ideate and what kind of tools or exercises can we use? So as we know, ideation is at the heart of design thinking and its process. It's kind of where the magic happens, and there are literally hundreds, maybe even thousands of techniques out there to help generate ideas. In this video, I'll outline a few of the most popularized techniques and some that I regularly use and think are kind of the best methods. But due to the nature of ideation, it's extremely important to make use of these techniques, specifically the ones that match the type of ideas you are trying to generate. The techniques you choose will also need to play in tandem with how you think and how you think you'll be able to communicate your ideas. So, like if you know that you can sketch ideas better than writing them, do that. And without further ado, here is an overview of some of the most essential ideation techniques. So the first one is brainstorming. It is the most used and well-known technique and is usually done in group scenarios. It's a great way to generate a lot of ideas by leveraging the collective thinking of the group. And in this collaborative environment, individuals can bounce ideas off of one another to create bigger and better concepts. Some cliches about brainstorming are actually kind of true, like two brains are better than one, and one plus one equals three. Brainstorming is a generative process that helps people get unstuck in the ideation phase as it injects insights from a broader group. It can also build enthusiasm around a project and new ideas. Brain dump is the next one. And brain dumping is extremely similar to brainstorming, except it's usually done individually, but also in a group scenario. So instead of allowing ideas to bounce off of one another in the heat of the moment, in the kind of fast-paced environment that brainstorming is, a brain dump is where you kind of it's the similar environment, but you're writing your ideas down, and so you have a little bit more time to reflect, and they're usually put onto sticky notes and you add them to a whiteboard or whatever surface you're using, and as a collective with all the other participants. And it's generally a slower process, but it works really well. And so these two methods, so brain dumping and brainstorming, are really ideation techniques that are best done in a group scenario, um, when a group or team are trying to solve problems together. But they can also be done individually, and in your case, this information is important to know. The next is sketch or sketchstorm. And this is essentially an exercise that helps you express ideas and potential solutions in the form of diagrams and sketches without any words. This can be an extremely useful tool for those of you who are more so visual thinkers and are able to generate sketches quite quickly. The idea of sketchstorming is not to create beautifully rendered drawings, but to communicate concepts that your sketches are aiming to do. Your sketches don't have to make sense to everyone either, but you should be able to understand them. And this process does work well for everyone, even if you're not very good at drawing or it takes you a little bit longer to communicate. Sometimes it it's quite beneficial to sort of switch things up if you're just writing everything down or doing a brainstorming and then going into creating something a little bit more visual. Mind mapping is next, and it's another extremely popular ideation exercise. And what it is it's a graphical technique that participants use to build a web, or kind of like a web, in which you can find relationships to various points or ideas that you make on paper. So essentially, you start with your problem statements, and you can put this anywhere on the page or whatever you're writing on. And then, in no particular order, you begin to just write out your ideas or what you're trying to solve the problem with. Like all the sort of ideas and solutions. If you use mind mapping, you'll begin with one of your problem statements, and then once you feel as though you have enough ideas or solutions on your page, you'll begin to look for relationships that may exist. So ideas that are similar or along the same thought pattern. This will be between the various statements, ideas, and solutions that you've made. You can then sort of group them together with lines or by rewriting them. Um, I find it really helps to take this a step further as well by grouping them. So then you can synthesize them and weed out the bad idea, or not bad ideas, but the ones that aren't so good, until you have great points that are solid ideas to use and go forward with. The next technique is storyboarding. Depending on how you work, storyboarding it can also be a really great technique. You're not really looking for extremely detailed drawings here. The point is more to give life to your idea, concept, or problem that you're trying to solve. Storyboarding gives you an outline, overview, and timeline for how your concept will sort of play out if it is executed. You can look at your solutions in a linear format and how things will play out. So it can be super helpful to kind of like actualize. It's best to use this after you've brainstormed or mind mapped or gotten a lot of ideas out there. This is almost like a testing phase with your ideas, so you can like place them in here. And it's best to have solid ideas to use this exercise with. So if you're using storyboards, start by gathering previously brainstormed ideas and solutions. This works well if you have post-it notes, um, if you have any around. Actually, most of the techniques discussed today work best if you have sticky notes lying around. It works really well because you can sort of like easily move them around and interchange them, and they're instead of having to erase it or scratch something out if you're just using a pen and paper. So the next stage here would be to identify the user's goal. Um, and it can be one or it can be many, but it's best if you just do one for the storyboard technique and you can test out another goal next. But for an example, let's say the goal is to reserve a seat on the bus. So then identify the high level steps afterwards that might go into achieving this goal. So taking that example a little bit further, opening an app, searching for the appropriate bus, and then reserving the seat. Then the next step would be categorizing and order the generated ideas to fit into the steps you've created. So this technique really puts ideas into action and context, and opens them up for more room for ideas to sort of like grow and explore and develop over time. So in conclusion, really go ahead and use whatever you think is best. This is like a to each their own kind of situation. And it also depends on what exactly you're trying to solve or what the problem is at hand. If it's a sort of like a service or something that some kind of concept you're really trying to figure out. Sometimes sketching doesn't help and you're just trying to use words, and vice versa if you're using a visual project or, sorry, conducting a visual project. Um, yeah, so it really depends on whatever you're doing. And all these kind of techniques that I've outlined are really just suggestions. And from my experience, when I've been individually working on design projects, I use a combination of all of these or two of them or whatever it is, sometimes even just one. But just like design as a whole, it's once again sort of like not a one size fits all process. In reality, it's a lot more flexible and usually a combination of the many solutions rather than just one. So do whatever works best for you and good luck.